Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why.
Good evening. I'm like Mr. Rogers today. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Not a cloud in the sky. I like the temperature. I didn't have to take off any clothes and get arrested, so it wasn't too hot. And I didn't have the overcoat on because it was too cold. So I want to thank everybody for joining us once again. It is always a delight for me to be here. Hopefully, it's a delight for you guys to be here, but we're always delighted that our audience attends one of our podcasts. This evening, we want to touch on a very critical subject because we want to discuss VA benefits. And for me, I'll let my guests tell you what their approach to everything is. But for me, I am concerned about our VAs maintaining and obtaining the benefits that they so well deserve. I think they are very underserved. And no, any of my patients can tell you that I've said it as loud as I can, that, thank you for your service, and a hot dog hamburger ain't enough. Okay. They have got to do a better job because our veterans put their lives on the line. Our veterans' family put their lives on the line as well, because without the leader of their family, whether that's man or woman, without the leaders in their family, that family suffers a tremendous loss when they are not having access to their loved one, whether it's mom, dad, even sisters, brothers, and grandparents or whomever their relatives. Joining us this evening are two guests that I am very appreciative that they are here, and that is Miss Latasha Green Cobb, an attorney. I'm gonna let Miss Cobb introduce herself and what she's all about, and then because ladies are first, Mr. Sproul, so you can forget about it. And then I'm gonna move on over to Mr. Joseph Sproul. Ms. Cobb, how you doing this evening?
I am wonderful, Dr. Kane. Thank you again for having me. I always appreciate the opportunity to speak to our community, and in particular about veteran benefits. I am Latasha Green Cobb. I am an attorney. I am licensed to practice in Georgia, Tennessee, and DC, but I do nationwide, international actual benefits for veterans. I actually have a client that is over in Germany. So we are accredited to assist veterans, wherever they may be in the states as well as in our different territories. So we do, work with veterans all over.
I'm sincere when I say we appreciate your service. Okay.
And we thank our veterans for their service and a wonderful opportunity to serve them. I am a daughter of a veteran. My dad was 100% disabled. He was actually a spontaneous amputee. He was about to throw a hand grenade and it was shot when he was in the war. And so he ended up losing his right hand. But in addition to that, I'm the mother of a veteran. I'm the sister of a veteran. And I am also the wife of an active service member. So they are all around me. So I definitely appreciate all the men and women that serve for our country.
Well, you explained before I asked the question, you have explained already. Why is it that you got into this? You got into this particular role?
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Sproul, how are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Okay, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm a 20-year veteran, retired. I went in the military in 83, retired. I went in 84, retired in 04. 20-year veteran. I I work with the DAV organization, helping veterans get their disabilities and other things. We help with homeless. We help with getting their certain percentage. We help with schooling. We authorize scholarships. So we do a whole number of things for veterans. And that's not just, a lot of times people want to, not include women, and we definitely help women big time. That's one part of our program.
Women veterans, right?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure I got it correctly. All right. So, Miss.
Well, hold on,
Reed-
Dr. King. You're not going to ask me how I'm doing.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, my
Yeah, how you
goodness.
doing?
Well, I'm doing well, thank you, Dr. King. You just goes. I'm gonna let Miss Johnston get on you for that.
Miss Turner, how you doing?
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing today?
Wonderful,
good.
wonderful, wonderful. Good to
Doing
see
well.
you again.
Good to see you as well. I'm super excited to have this discussion tonight. What have I missed?
Just the two of them introduce themselves and who they are, and in a brief 50,000 foot view, 50,000 foot overview. They talked about themselves and who they are, and somewhat why they got into this particular line of service to the community. So, since you're the more articulate person here, we're going to yield to you and let you go ahead and move forward.
I'll send my check for that comment afterwards. But anyway, it's so wonderful to have you all on to talk about this very important topic. I don't know about you all, but it's really feeling like a day in Florida, isn't it? I mean, this
Yes.
weather is amazing, absolutely amazing.
We did talk about it.
I'm going to start with you, Mr. Spruill. Did I say your name right?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you a question just right off the cuff, because something came to mind when we started talking about veterans. And I want to bring this up because I want people who are not sure about what direction they want to go with their life as far as a career, why they might consider a career with the military, by first asking about the benefits in terms of pay. Do your benefits start, first of all, when people think about, excuse me, I didn't mean to say talk about pay, but people think about how much am I going to make every week or whatever. But let's talk about the benefits. I mean, when I start a job, on some people, when they start a job, the benefits start 90 days after, or so many, whatever. At what point when someone starts in their career, and I realize this may have changed over the years, so I don't want to put you on the spot and think you know everything there is to know about the military, but why is it good to join the military as far as benefits are concerned?
Well, for one, when you retire, like I for insurance, health insurance for myself and my wife, we pay $34 a month.
Wow.
And that's a huge factor in factoring in to retire or join the military. Not just that, you get to travel in the military to a lot of different places, especially in the Navy. You're always pulling into the ports where you have tourists and all of that. So you get to travel. Your retirement benefit is good. Now, if you don't retire from the military, and say you do 2 years or 4 years or 12 years, you can get a job with the government, and that's going to continue on your federal government job.
Oh,
where
wow.
you can use, so you can retire. So you do 12 years in the Navy and got out, and then 8 years in the federal government, and you want to retire, you can retire. The
With
years
20
just
years.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
But a lot of people don't do that though. They stay longer with the current job. So
But that's an option though,
Yeah, it's an option. And then a lot of times when people retire, you don't necessarily have to work if you don't want to. But a lot of people do because they have to stay busy. They don't know what to do other than, what they used to do in the Navy for umpteen years.
You don't want to retire to die for sure.
What's that?
I say you don't want to retire to die for sure.
That's right. And we see a lot of veterans, you know, whether they retired or not, they'll continue to work. But it seems like every time someone gets out the military, their life expectancy is like 5 to 10 years.
Wow.
Yes. You know, and that's because a lot of veterans are trying to deal with the transition of being military and then all of a sudden going to civilian. So when they get to the civilian sector, once they retire, it's like the government don't care about them or don't guide them or anything. If you're active duty, the government, you're owned by the government. But once you get out the military, the government has no more use for you. So that leaves a lot of veterans going homeless, being discouraged with some kind of traumatic stress. But we have places for a veteran, whether it's military service, traumatic, or if it's PTSD or homeless. I mean, we cover everything. And we also so yeah, we cover everything with that. So joining the military is you know, some people say, well, I'm not going in the Navy because I can't swim. There's a lot of people in the Navy that can't swim and they're still in the Navy. There's, you know, I couldn't swim at first either, but I went, only thing I could do was float. And so they taught me how to swim in boot camp. So I learned how to swim. But yeah, you know, I try and teach people or tell people that the safest branch to join, I don't have no knock against any branches, but the safest branch is the Navy. Because there's no naval warfare and there's no air warfare. So the Navy is the safest, where you can do 20, 30 years without ever seeing anything.
Yeah.
So,
I just thank you for breaking that down. But how sad though and dismal, Miss Green Cobb, that, you know, I look at someone like yourself, an attorney who, you know, and I'm sorry I didn't catch your introduction, but I just think how someone like you could be so beneficial to fight for veterans and, you know, and help represent them as they are trying to navigate life. That, I mean, how sad, you know, at first I was, okay, join the military. But gosh, listening to Mrs. Spruill, I don't know if they're just kicked out back into the society and trying to navigate and figure things out. That's just not very good, though.
No, it's not.
I mean, if we're going to be, you know, a little more candid about it and forthright about what's really going on, I think that is more of the story for our people of color. You know, it's not really per se the story for the other counterparts. Unfortunately, so many of our service members of color, and particularly, this is another area that a lot of people don't talk about. In my experience, it's very difficult to get benefits for women. We really have to navigate a different path in achieving benefits for women, when, you know, those situations aren't as difficult for men. But primarily, in my experience, I deal with quite a few service members of color, but I do have some Caucasian service members. But when we look at it in a historical perspective, it has often been said that our people of color came back home and were not received well. And, you know, because if we're talking our Vietnam era or the other eras, they came back home to an America that was not united. And so although you may have fought in the same foxholes or the same trenches with people of all color, you came back to a very divided America, and a divided America when it came to how they distributed benefits. So many of my clientele, you know, in their 70s, 80s, and now we just recently had the PACT Act that came out in 2022, when we're able to now help these people get their benefits that they probably should have had beforehand, but we didn't want to acknowledge, you know, some of the errors that the government made, you know, in terms of the exposure they had to, you know, Agent Orange or other, you know, toxic substances over there, and we just didn't give them the benefits they needed. When I talked to my husband, who I said, is an active service member, but he remembers his uncle coming back from Vietnam and being very, distraught, but not knowing how to manage probably what he has seen over there and how to acclimate, speaking to Mr. Sproul's point, back to society, right? And so there was a lot of mental turmoil. And that was just another example that we're just not providing the support that they needed. The average human being is not really meant to see death, front hand, what I'm saying, consistently, right? So you need to have that opportunity to talk some of that out. And unfortunately, many of our service members did not have the opportunity to, discuss what they saw, channel some of that energy into a more productive way, or that frustration that they're feeling from having, a career that provides for your room and board and your meals. And then now I need to come back to society where I need to figure all of that out on my own. So I do want to be specific about that I think is more of a thing of what our people of color were challenged with when they returned.
I will say, and I didn't mention this to you guys before, I had multiple points of exposure with veterans and issues that are concern of them, including one of the first things I ever did was to speak to the original guy that came up with the diagnosis of PTSD when I was doing an externship up in Atlanta at the VA hospital. That kind of exposed me to it. I didn't serve in the military, but when we had the first Gulf War, they had the Forrestal and the Saratoga based here over at Mayport, and all the physicians at Mayport the Navy physicians were put on the Forrestal and the Saratoga. And I understand that they needed the assistance there, but it left their families and, without any service whatsoever. And I saw serving over there, I ran the emergency room, yada, 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 for probably a year and a half or so while they were there over at Mayport, worked over at NAS. But I saw a whole lot of discrimination, what I call it, in terms of our Black service members, not to mention, women. I mean, I don't even know what to say about that as far as women was concerned. I've never, even to this day, even though I've helped a lot of veterans, quite be frank with you, I haven't had the opportunity to help a lot of women veterans. I don't know why that is, to be quite frank with you. And not until you said something just now, Ms. Greencarb, did I recognize, something. I can think of many of the service men that I've helped, but I can't think of a single service woman that has come to me, after they just got that hamburger and a handshake, and went on about their business because the government ignored them. I just never seen any. How do we increase our participation with women veterans?
Oh gosh. So the biggest thing I think for all veterans, whether it's female or male, is having the information. And I'm sure Mr. Sproul can speak to this as well. Many of them do not have the information at their fingertips. Even with myself, I was sharing this with my husband. My husband was coming back from a deployment, and I had just applied to become an accredited VA attorney, because it's not just any attorney can help you with these benefits. You have to be an accredited attorney. So that means we register with the Office of General Counsel, with the Veterans Affairs. They go through whatever their background process is, whatever their screening procedure is, in order to say you are accredited to assist veterans with applying for benefits. But even with that, being a spouse of a veteran, it never dawned on me right then, even though I saw him come back walking differently because he was over, in the Middle East, and there was a lot of uneven terrain. So, and then, I joke about the fact that he was an older veteran. So my husband went into the military just 6 days shy of his 40th birthday, for the very reasons of making sure that we had insurance benefits, because, as Mr. Sproul may be able to attest to, they have wonderful medical benefits. And you mentioned the price of it. So for us, when he joined the military, and even though my husband works for the city, when he joined the military, we almost got, an immediate increase, or as some people would say, promotion of sorts, at least in the monetary means, because we were paying less for insurance. So that was, an immediate increase in our household. But with all of that, with him being a 40-year-old going into a deployment, him walking on uneven terrain is quite different than a 20-year-old walking on uneven terrain. So he came back walking differently because his body, took a beating. Most times when they're deployed, they're not just working 5 days, they're working 6 or 7 days a week. So you're talking an older, or seasoned, more, seasoned service member doing something that 20 and 30-year-olds do. So even though I saw all those things when he came back, it never dawned on me he's eligible for disability. So, I had already signed up, to become an accredited attorney. Never dawned on me. And it took someone working with him on his civilian job to say, hey, are you looking at getting disability? And so he mentioned it to me, and I was like, say less, So, I was like, okay, let's go ahead. So, I've assisted him with getting his benefits. And, it really is a wonderful opportunity to give back to our service members, because they've given so much. And, some of them have given, even more in terms of their life. So we even help survivors, but it's just a matter of not having the information, not having the awareness that they can apply, or they have applied, been turned down, and now I'm, disengaged because I feel discouraged about the process. So it's a lot of things that come into why our people are not applying.
In the military, with that being said, I'm sorry, Ms. Turner, I just got to make this statement, a question. One of the things that, when you come back, and this is no dismissal of anything that happens to our veterans, but, when you come back and if you got an arm missing, a leg missing, a body part missing, people recognize that and maybe more understanding of what you're going through. But nobody, that was a good while, like I said, when I served up in Atlanta, I didn't serve in the military, but when I actually was seeing patients, the PTSD, they do not appreciate the mental disabilities that accompanies serving in the military, especially when you serve active duty into a war zone and so on and so on. Either one of you guys can talk about that.
Well, I know that in the Navy, people are getting out with their benefits up there. The military has changed a lot. The people from World War II, Vietnam, they didn't really start getting their benefits until Desert Storm. Yep. That's when that opened. Desert Storm, Desert Shield opened up everything for the World War II vets and the Vietnam vets. So once they start coming out and feeling comfortable about talking about their traumatic injury, especially if they're talking to another veteran, or it could be another civilian who's empathizing with them, in the military, back when I was in, people would say, you might be sick or something with a cold, and you go to sick bay. And every time you go to sick bay, they call you sick bay commando. So now that's what you're known as, sick bay commando. They don't want a military person to go to medical all the time. So especially a lot of blacks, when they get out, they have a history of going to medical all the time, and the whites didn't. And that put a damper on blacks getting their benefits. They didn't know, they had the medical diagnosis and everything. They just didn't know who to turn to talk to or who to help start the process. And that's one of the things what VA does, the DAV does. You know, when I retired in 04 from the military, I was 38, and I was trying to figure out what am I going to, I was trying to figure that out 6 months or a year before I retired. What am I going to do when I get out? I had no idea. And so I got out and I went working for Walmart. And then after Walmart, then I went working for Sound Device. So I have a lot of veterans coming to me asking me if they can help get them a job. I had this one veteran, he confided in me all the time in different things. I tried to help him, but he felt that the benefits is better for someone that's an amputee than someone who doesn't have an amputee.
Who want to pay that price?
Right. So one day I had gone to meet him and he wasn't there. And then I asked around and they said he committed suicide back there in the woods. He was homeless. And that hurt my heart there because I talked to him every day, just to be an ear to listen to him talk. He told me so much about his tour in the military. But there's a lot of veterans like that a lot of the government don't know. It seems like they're using the military as a scapegoat, and the reason why they shouldn't help veterans. And because we help not just help veterans get their disability percentage, we help them with scholarships. We help them going back to school, and they go back to school free under the post 9/11 bill, GI Bill. So there's a lot of benefits out there, eyeglasses, dental, all of that veterans do not know about. They think that you have to be retired, and we say, no, you don't have to be retired. You could do 2 years and you're entitled to the VA benefits. So it's just a lot.
It seems like some conversation, though, need to take place with people. So, if you have my friend, her granddaughter, for example, is in the military. My coworker, both are in the military, and they talk about, they're excited when their kids went into the armed forces. However, it seems like they need to have a conversation with them throughout their career to say, make sure that you learn what your benefits are when you retire. And God forbid, if you have to seek disabled veterans privileges. I call it a privilege, not a privilege, a benefit. It's a benefit. It's not a privilege. Because if you an earned benefit. But it's interesting what I thought you were going to say, Mr. Spruill, that you didn't say. So I'm going to be Dr. Kane and be the advocate, the devil's advocate, and say it for you. That people talk about the military and they use it in campaigning. They reach out to veterans for their votes. They talk about we need to make sure we take care of our veterans. But when they get elected, is that really happening?
No.
Right? You know what I'm saying? And again, if you don't see someone having lost a limb, it doesn't mean that they did not give of their life,
right,
or a part rather of their life to the military. If you're just joining us, we are talking with Mr. Joseph Spruill and Miss Latasha Green Cobb. If you have any veterans in your life, chime in. Let's hear about any challenges that they've had. Any issues they've had, for example, accessing the benefits that they're quite frankly entitled to. Someone said, when I was in the military, you were ashamed in front of your peers for going to the doctor. That environment conditions you to ignore health issues and ultimately impacts your disability benefits, which is such a shame just to even hear Mr. Spruill, you saying that they had a nickname for people just for going. But in civilian life, we don't. Yeah, we talk about people who abuse their privileges by getting off, going to see Dr. Kane all the time just to get off work but still the work environment is quite different. So let's talk a little bit about how was it for you when you transitioned from military to civilian life?
Can I ask this? Just say this one last thing, because Miss Green Cobb did mention about. She didn't use the word, but I'm gonna use it. The racism that was experienced in the military. Again, when I was serving our veterans over at Mayport, I also saw military personnel because, again, those doctors were stationed on the two the Saratoga and the Firestone. A white veteran, not even a veteran, actually, he was actually a serving lieutenant commander, that he was coming to see me on multiple occasions. And his problem was that he just didn't feel right. He was serving in the first Vietnam War, and he was fatigued all the time. And he had all kind of issues. And even he got deemed as being whatever the term was you used, lazy, and he's just complaining all the time. And that's when I did the research also, and it's not one of these, but did research to find out about the Gulf War syndrome, because that was not, really experienced at the time. And he was trying to appreciate it. What did it mean? And, with these hydrocarbons, which is, basically oil products, and how they burned all that stuff over in Iraq, set it on fire, and our veterans had to inhale all this stuff because you couldn't point a finger to say this toe was amputated or this finger was amputated or an arm amputated. He was deemed as being, just a complainer, and there was nothing really wrong with him. But further investigation, because we pursued it, further investigation revealed that it was the Gulf War syndrome, for which the military was trying not to accept at that time. Eventually, they had to understand and appreciate what he was going through. If a white veteran, this is the point I was trying to get to, and he wasn't a veteran, if a white lieutenant, active duty lieutenant commander was treated like that, I can only imagine how those minority, and probably any of them, but how the minority, especially military veterans, were treated if they came up with similar complaints that you couldn't put a finger on a real physical condition as to what was going on. That's a very much accepted diagnosis now, compared to what it was back then. But it still put black military veterans at such a disadvantage, when it came to receiving the benefits.
And see, some of when a black veteran filled out the paperwork and all, somewhere on that paperwork, it asks, what is your ethnicity? And if they said black, it would get weeded out at the top. And that's why that's what was caused the black separation from the Caucasians.
Yep. For which Elon Musk now is getting access to by way of Doge, and with all this personal information. What people are not talking about is access, knowing that they can be identified as being black now very easy. But that's maybe another subject. Go ahead.
So
yeah, I was going to ask you, and you may be about to answer this. What are some common legal challenges veterans face when applying for VA benefits?
And I was about to go into that, because one thing in particular I wanted to expound on the PTSD thing. So one of the big issues with PTSD is that, and Dr. Kane, you may be able to, attest to where I'm going with this. You have to have a specific incident. PTSD is not the general experience of military, because everybody would be able to claim that, right? And so that's just not feasible, right? So that's one of the premise that I try to explain to our veterans that we work with. Is my big thing that I express to them: hey, there is no way that this economy can manage every single veteran having 100%. It just can't happen, right? So we have to be realistic about what you are applying for. People will put in PTSD just because they were upset when they returned home or didn't have, a easy time acclimating back to civilian life. That's not really PTSD. That's not a specific incident that caused trauma. What you're probably, describing is anxiety or some type of other mental disturbance or emotional disturbance. So one of our biggest challenges is, and I know Dr. Kane can definitely attest to this, people on the internet thinking they know. Because something worked for one person, then I'm just going to say this. And that's just not always conducive for the best result. The other thing, I share with many of my veterans, I tell my veterans, do not go in character and do not undersell it. So what I mean by that is I have people who have shared with me, oh, my relative went into the doctor's office with 2 canes, or you never see this person walking with a cane, but when you see them at the doctor's office, they have a cane. No, we're not going in character. We're going to go in, we're going to express what type of pain you're feeling, the extent of that pain. If you're having a range of motion issue, the moment it starts paining you, you're going to express that. But my big point is, one, you don't want to give the VA an opportunity to say that something you did or said was fraudulent. So now you put all of your claims in jeopardy. And for me,
all of veterans other veterans claims in jeopardy.
At least in my office, that's how I see it. Because my thought is, if I promote, a fraudulent claim, then I put myself in a situation where my other veterans are now in jeopardy because you lied. So, I have no problem disengaging with a client. I know that some people think that they may not be, good business. It is for me. All money is not good money. I'm sure all of y'all parents, somebody in your life told you that. So all money is not good money. So I'm okay with disengaging. So my big thing to my veterans is to be honest about what's going on. I'll give you another example. I had one veteran that described to me what he was experiencing with tinnitus and how it was disrupting his sleep at night. And the way he described it, I was so like, oh my goodness, like, dang, I feel so sorry for him. Dang, you're not resting because you have this sound, right, going on. And then they went to the doctor. And when I saw the percentage that was given, for the doctor's reviewing what they thought, I said, oh, you obviously didn't explain your tinnitus to them the way you explained it to me. And so the veteran had to stop and think about what I said. I put the claim back in and I said, tell them what you told me. And it came back 20% higher. You went from a 30 to a 50. I'm like, there was no way I could tell on certain things where they're not just being honest. And you get especially my men, they get macho, and for me, I have plenty of veterans that come to me that know me personally. And oftentimes I will put them with my staff member because I've learned that because you know me personally, sometimes you won't be transparent and honest about how it's really bothering you. And it is perfectly fine for a man to be bothered, to be hurt. We have all those dynamics that come with this, whether it's, the Caucasian persuasion or the brown American persuasion. Men in general don't want to, appear weak. So they won't always tell you what's going on. And I'm like, no, don't be in character, but do not undersell it. So tell them what's going on with you and let's go from there. We're always talking about, we would get you the best benefits. We definitely, if you served, you deserve, I'm all for that, but let's be honest about it.
Yeah, I tell them to cut. Let's cut through the BS. Let's just cut through the BS. Don't bring that BS to me. Give me what I need to be able to fight for you, but don't come so you can destroy or damage the concerns of other the conditions of other veterans. Because I'll dismiss them right quick, and it's like, no, you full of shit. Excuse my language, but tell them right quickly, you're full of it.
Well, and another thing too is them understanding that it's not any and everything that went on with you, you know. So it's not you got a nosebleed, you know, it's not that. No. Do you have chronic nosebleeds? Do you constantly have nosebleeds that started in the military? So, you know, we're always trying to help them understand the nexus. It has to be service connected and it has to be chronic. It has to be something that you're dealing with consistently.
Has
So,
to be diagnosed.
Yes. And what kind of conditions did you work in the military? If you served on an aircraft carrier, like I mentioned with the Saratoga and the Forrestal, you know, you may suffer from tinnitus.
I do. I mean, I have hearing aids because I have hearing loss.
Right.
I worked on a small ship, on a cruiser, and in the engine room, these are jet propulsion engines.
Yes.
And they're enclosed in a box.
Yes.
Like you can't hear all of that, but they have us putting double hearing protection on, where when we go in, you know, we put the little foamies in, and then we put the Mickey Mouse headphones in, and then we go into that module. Well, that is so loud. The hearing things don't even help.
Don't work.
No, it penetrates through that. You know, so a lot of people who work in the engineering department has that, but they just don't know how to convey that, how to present it to the VA. And that's where we come in, because it's got to be worded a certain way. So, you know, as it's going up the chain of command, they'll see and approve it.
But if you work in the bookkeeping
department, I was an electrician in the Navy for 20 years. And so I was always in engineering, of course, but I worked, that was my main thing, the engineering room. That was always loud. Engineering and the rudder room in the back on the aft part of the ship. But as far as me transitioning,
I was going to ask you, were there any benefits or programs that you found particularly helpful in your journey?
Yes. I was admitted to a domiciliary down in St. Pete, Florida.
What's that?
It looks like the Pentagon. It has wings on it. One wing is for military sexual trauma. Another wing is for those veterans that's homeless. Another wing is for
it's compartmentalized, basically, is what.
Yes, each one, but you're there for 30 days. And while you're there for 30 days, you know, they want you can't wear a belt, no strings in your shoes and all of that. So they have classes throughout each day, 4 classes throughout the day, except for on the weekend. The weekend, they'll bring zoo animals in, whether it's owls or, I mean, you name it. They would bring it in to help help soften up the blow for the veterans that's going through a crisis. You know, they may like animals. So they did a lot of things through that 30-day period. And that really helped me, and it helped a lot of people. On the day of my graduation, a veteran came to that facility. He was denied his benefits, and he went out there and shot himself in the head in the parking lot. So everything shut down at that point. I'm like, wow, how can this happen to a place like this? You know, this is a place where you come to get help. You don't turn no one away, you know, whether they have a mild or a maximum condition. You don't turn anybody away, because you don't know what's really going in through people's minds. That really hit home with me there.
So what kind of advice would you give to other disabled veterans who might be struggling to navigate the system?
Well, it's hard to try and get through some veterans because they're stubborn. But I would tell them, you know, if they need someone to talk to, I give them my phone number. Or they can call the, I'm trying to think of what's that 3-digit number, not 911, but
988?
988, that's it. They can call 988 if they want to.
National
yes,
Suicide.
A lot of them won't call that. The best way I feel that I would go to a veteran's house, because he may not have any family that comes to visit him. So I'll go to his home, sit there for about an hour, just chatting it up, you know, about military and about life, just things, a lot of veterans need that, and they don't have that in their life. The other thing is just try and tell veterans to be active. I know you want to work, but also there's things that you can do to volunteer to where that'll lead to a job for you. Volunteer first, and then So there's different avenues. There's an avenue for every veteran, no matter what the case is. There's an avenue for that veteran.
Ms. Turner, and I'm sorry, Mr. Spruill, but I know we get short on time, and I'm trying not. There's one aspect of this discussion I really wanted to make sure we addressed, and that is the potential harm to veterans that Project 2025, in terms of what it means to veterans and their benefits, potentially, and black, white, blue, green, yellow doesn't make a difference, because at this point, with what being done with that, you can't, other than Elon Musk doing his little Doge stuff, you can't differentiate between the black, white, blue, green, or yellow when you're unable to provide the services. I don't know what comment you two guys, and when I say guys, I'm sorry, Ms. Green. Ladies,
I'm in a house full of men, sir. I have 4 brothers, 2 sons, and a husband. I roll with
that's
them.
how we talk.
I'm one of the guys.
And so the potential impact that Project 2025 is going to have on veterans, I know personally that's going to be devastating. Okay, the downstream effect of what is going to happen in terms of, if you just went and did ChatGPT, it will quickly tell you the exact what's going to happen with the potential of what can happen with Project 2025. What do you guys have in mind? And again, because of time, and Ms. Turner, I'm sorry to jump right into it, but I just feel like we need to discuss that. And we getting short, and I got to be respectful of their time. The potential impact is going to have on veteran benefits, and how do we address those issues? And I'll shut up and let you guys speak at this point.
So I think one of the concerns we have is that they're going to reduce the staff size come June. I believe that article just recently came out that they're planning to reduce the staff in June. Another pivotal thing that came out within the last few days is when it used to be a deference where they were supposed to err in the favor of the veteran whenever there was a discrepancy, in terms of, positive for the claim, negative for the claim. They were supposed to err in favor of the veteran. And even now that has been deemed that is not going to be automatic any longer. So I think with the Project 2025, I think a lot of people are now seeing that this was not a joke. We are definitely in the find out stage, right? So people are seeing all of what's going on. As far as how it will affect me, I just have to be more diligent. I'm a little different from Mr. Spruill's company. I think they're more in the VSO, Veteran Service Organization space. We are, an accredited law office that handles VA claims. So we do get paid a percentage, but I only get paid when my veteran gets paid. So there's a lot of work that we do that unless it yields my veteran an increase in their rating or a rating in general, it doesn't yield us funds. So I'm just going to continue to do what we do. I mean, the fortunate thing is I am passionate about it because I come from a service family, from my father to, my uncles, to my brothers, to my sons, to my husband. So, I'm still passionate about what I do. So for me, I do think it's going to be an issue. I do think we may have a situation where there's some backlog because if the staff is being dwindled, I don't want to say they're slow now, but you know what I'm talking about. So I can only imagine it may get worse. But
Ms. Greencott, is there a statute? I wanted to ask you, is there a statute of limitations as far as accessing those benefits?
No, fortunately,
or
it's not.
appealing
So
a
this
decision?
is where no. So a veteran can make their claim at any time. The issue becomes it does become more difficult the longer you are away from service, because now how do we make that connection so seamlessly, right? Because the service connection becomes an issue. So a prime example, I have one veteran right now. He fractured his foot during Ranger training. He was in his 20s when that happened, right? He's a few months now from turning 50. He's never fractured that foot ever again, but they are trying to tell me that his now ankle issues, leg issues, hip issues have nothing to do with that fractured foot.
Right.
And you understand that what do most people do? You know, you have that pain, so you switch up, you know, so eventually something else in your body pays because you're trying not to feel the pain of putting that pressure on that left foot. So
Opposite hip.
right, so they don't want to claim that. So it makes it difficult the longer, but there's no limit on when they can apply. Where the limit comes is when you get a denial, you have to dispute that denial within a year. So that's where, and that's not really a limit. You can still go back and you know, claim it again. You just won't get the benefits from when you initially started.
Right. And what she mean is when you first put the claim in, so you put a claim in 2010, and 2012 it was denied. Well, you can put that claim in, you can appeal that claim. Now, when you appeal that claim in 2012, when it goes through and get approved, that means you're going to get back pay from 2010. The other thing, CAN Action Network is where not just veterans, civilians all can log on to CAN, Commander Action Network. And when you log into it, you fill out the information and click submit, and that goes to the state, to where it goes to the governor, senator, and then they take it on up to DC. And you will receive emails about the different legislatures that they're up there fighting for veterans. So if everyone, all four of us, can go into the CAN Commander Action Network, fill out that information. CAN Network, Command Action Network. And anyone, you don't have to be, you could be 10 years old. You can have anyone. The more people sign into this, the more we are being helped for the veterans.
Quick question, Ms. Cobb. Can you, as a certified attorney, can you be decertified because they don't like you?
Well, no, a veteran can disengage with me, just like I have the right to disengage with them.
I'm talking about the government.
So if they found that I was acting egregiously, yes, the OGC for VA does have a right to remove my accreditation. And so that's the thing that we have to, you know, there's a conversation about that, people who are accredited and people who aren't. So you can be accredited as an individual. You don't have to be an attorney, but you have to take a test. So that's a claim agent. But you're supposed to be accredited either as a claim agent or as an attorney or a member of a veteran service organization. There has to be some level of oversight, you know, because the Office of General Counsel is trying to make sure that their veterans are protected, because there are organizations out there that say, oh, you know, we will get 5 times whatever the increase is that we get for you, you know, for VA. That's not allowed. You know, as an accredited attorney, we're one of the higher ones who can get paid, and we can be paid up to 33 1/3 of back pay. But the reality is 5 times whatever their increase is. You know, I just did the math on this from the other day when I heard someone say it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, they would be making, you know, anywhere from, you know, $6,000 to $8,000 in the example I was given at the time. And I'm like, and you did the same amount of work that we did. So what gives you the right to take that extra money from that veteran?
Wow. Mr. Spruill, what are some common misconceptions veterans have about VA benefits?
Well, one, they think that VA benefits only pertain to veterans that's retired from the military. They think that they're not entitled. Whether they do 10, 12 years, they think that they're not entitled. It's only for retired veterans. And that's a big one that we try and let veterans know. That's why I'm trying to work on, I'm in the process of working on getting on base, whether it's NAS Jax or Mayport, where they have what's called a TAP program when they're transitioning into civilian world. In that TAP program, in that TAP class, they tell everybody, they basically hold training on how to ease into the civilian life. But that's not enough, because you tell a person that now you're gone, and then they get out into the civilian world and they don't know what to do. It's like shell shock. So that's what I'm trying to get our veteran organization in there to the TAPS class, so that way we can inform veterans of this. Also, I try and talk to veterans, well, military active duty who's in there, you know, whether they've been in 2 years or 4 years. I let them know, if you have any ailments, go to medical. Do not turn that down. Go to medical if you have an illness, because that diagnosis is going to help you later on down in life. The other thing, for those who's been out the military for a while, if you had an ailment in the military, you would want to keep going to see that doctor so you can get current document. You can't just use old document and that's it. You got to get current document showing that you're still having this problem.
Thank you. Wow, this is a very, I think, a very complex conversation. And it's sad, though, Ms. Green Cobb, but when you were talking earlier about female veterans, I remember having a conversation with a female veteran, the things they even have to go through while being enlisted and the rights that they have to fight for. Have you had to represent any service members, female service members in that space, or are your services limited to fighting for benefits?
So actually, we do probably quite a bit of what Mr. Sproul spoke of. So we can assist a service member with Chapter 35. If they have 100% and their dependents want to go to school, we can assist them with getting that started. We also assist spouses with survivor benefits when their service member has transitioned. But in the case of female veterans, yes, we represent them. I have a few female veterans. They tend to be in the larger group of military sexual trauma, but we do have to recognize that men experience military sexual trauma as well. It's definitely not exclusive to women, but our women just happen to be more likely to experience it. So I have had to, I think at least, it's not a whole huge amount, but what is, you know, what do they say? You went to law school so you didn't have to do math, whatever, you know, I'm thinking off the top of my head what the percentage would be. But I do, right off the top of my head, can think of about 2 or 3 of our clients that we've had to assist them in trying to receive, you know, support in the military sexual trauma that they experience while serving.
Now, the other thing with women veterans, there's women veterans that come to us, men service officers, but they may not feel comfortable off the get-go. They'll let us know that they would like to talk to a female. And we do have female veteran service officers. Wonderful. So, and when we, you know, it's a successful rate we're having now because we're reaching out to so many veterans. We have what's called a hot list, and it has how many veterans. It's 1,100 that we have in our DAV chapter. Now, out of that 1,100, maybe 300 might be deceased already, but we don't know. But that's where we got to clean that up so we can reach out to all of the veterans, you know, because we send out this email weekly. And when we have our meeting every month, every first Tuesday of the month, we get new people coming in. And we're like, how did you hear about us? And they said, well, they kept getting this email and they wanted to come and check it out. So they ended up checking it out and finding out all kind of good information and staying with us. So there's different ways to reach out to veterans.
Wow. So Ms. Green Cobb, can veterans receive benefits while still working, and what should they know about income limits?
Oh, actually, there are no income limits. So they can receive benefits while they're working. Definitely don't want to put all my veterans business out there, but many of my veterans, they may serve either in the National Guard or Reserve. Active duty is where it gets a little testy. But as far as those National Guard and reservists, they're able to apply, I would probably defer to Mr. Sproul as to the caveat with the active duty, but generally my active duty people come after they've retired or either after they've disengaged, with the military. That's when they normally come.
Mr. Sproul, did you have any comment before we wrap up?
I was going to say that there's different criterias for you to have. Like me, I'm 100%. And I'm permanent and total unemployable. That word unemployable. When they tag me with that, I can no longer work. Mm-hmm. So I'm 100% permanent and total. If I was just 100% permanent and total, I would still be able to work. But being that they put me at unemployable, I'm not able to work, of course.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
What's that?
Is that a good thing or bad thing?
Well, it could be both. It depends on the person. Like I retired from the military. So once they made me unemployable, I started getting my Social Security at an early age, the disability side. Mm-hmm. So I was getting my civil service, which is Army Corps, my VA 100%, my Navy retirement, and the Army Corps of Engineers disability. So yeah, I can talk to people to where they can, reach out to me if they want, because there's so many different avenues that we help veterans. I mean, wow.
Wow, this has been very good. I hope that our audience, we've gotten comments from folks that this has been, you've both educated our audience as well as me about this very complex topic. As Dr. Kane always says, we sure need to have you on again. Both of you on again, as we near the final hour or the final minutes of the show. We're actually be past the hour. We do like to give our guests an opportunity to share their final thoughts. Is there anything that you wanted to share that you had not shared? Now this is your opportunity, and I'm going to start with you, Ms. Green Cobb.
Thank you guys so much again. I always like to make sure that I give my appreciation to you all, because you actually brought attention to a subject that many people don't discuss. So I thank you so much for the opportunity. And for those people that joined in, I thank you guys for joining and engaging with us and interacting. I appreciate your time. But most importantly, I thank our service members for their service. And I don't think, we say it all the time, but I think we have to be mindful about just really saying, I appreciate you and I understand, the sacrifice you made. But the other part I want to add to that is the sacrifice of those left behind, from the spouses to the children, because we serve as well. So we may not serve on the front line or, on the ships or in the airplanes, but we are serving at home in order to keep the household stable and keep the family intact, and supporting that service member, sending letters to that service member while they're away so that they know that they're still loved. I mean, for those that watched the 688, you understood now how important getting mail is, and I asked my husband, I said, does it still look like that? Because, I'm watching them in that movie, and he said, yeah, that's pretty much what it's like. You come out and you're waiting to get your name called. And so I kind of joked. I said, oh, well, your name was getting called all the time, because we were writing him all the time. So I do want to thank those family members that are left behind for the sacrifice they make, that they're giving of their person to serve this country. And many times we don't recognize them. But I thank our service members. I definitely look forward to working with anyone who is interested in Empowered Action, assisting you with getting the benefits that you deserve. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we will make sure that your contact information is on our website and, of course, within the body of the podcast, so that people, as they share the podcast, they will see it. Mr. Sproul, what are your final thoughts regarding today's topic?
I thank you all for having me. Today was like like Ms. Green said, it was a good topic. For veterans, it's a touchy subject out there. You have so many different things to do, like burn pits, Gulf Registry, PACT Act. There's so many different avenues that you can apply for. And if you're a veteran out there, you're not alone. We are all with you. Come to the VA clinic so we can get you enrolled. Come to the VA clinic so we can get you seen and diagnosed so you can get your proper disability compensation. I have nothing else. I just want
I feel your
they
passion.
reach out to me.
Yeah, I feel your passion, because when you talked about the suicide, and that hurts, right? Even though I didn't know those people, but just to hear you say that, and that we let them down, that's pretty sad. So thank you for your sacrifice beyond the beyond the ship, in keeping on helping folks, because you didn't just go sit down. You're putting things into action. Dr. Kane, what are your final thoughts?
I'll be very brief. I appreciate both of you guys for coming. Once again, I go guys. Both of you get.
It's fine.
Both of you guys for coming and joining us on our podcast this evening. I have always been an advocate for veterans benefit and on behalf of veterans. I have no problem with seeing veterans. Just don't come up with the BS. He can come in, and I don't have a problem seeing them as patient and assisting them to the best of my ability as to what I can help them with in terms of achieving their benefits. So feel free that if, and we are, we do take the whole gamut of the veterans medical care. And we're actually okay with that. And I really don't mind. I'm very concerned at this point in time as to what may be happening as it relates to Project 2025 and the difficulty that you guys may be facing, all of us may be facing, but in particularly for those people who have expressed how well they've earned everything that they deserve, and their family members also earning for those whom loved one may have not survived the military service. They should also be honored and serviced as well. I'm sure that their spouse or loved one who lost their lives on behalf of their country would want their loved ones to be well taken care of, and we need to make sure that we do just that. In particularly, and not exclusively, but in particularly to the minority community.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. And that wraps up today's episode of Pause for the Truth. A huge thank you to our guest, David Spruill with the Disabled American Veterans Association or organization, and attorney Latasha Green Cobb for both of you for sharing your insights, experiences, and invaluable advice on navigating VA benefits and resources. If you're a veteran or know someone who could benefit from this conversation, be sure to share this episode and subscribe to our podcast, of course. Don't miss out on future episodes packed with expert advice and inspiring stories. Follow us on our social media platforms and join our community for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more resources. Remember, help is always available, right, Mr. Spruill? And
yes,
you don't have
ma'am.
to navigate this journey alone. For more
Correct.
resources and additional information, check out the links in our show notes. And of course, you saw the link dav.org
Yes.
or disabledveteransamerican.org. And of course, we will share the Ms. Green Cobb's contact information. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, pauseforthetruth.com. Thank you for tuning in, and tune in next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And there we have it, another episode of the Pause for the Truth podcast in the proverbial books. Our heartfelt thanks go out to every one of you who took the time to tune in. Mark your calendars. We're here every Tuesday at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Feel free to join our community on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But the golden ticket? Subscribing to our YouTube channel. That's your passport to all our latest episodes and exclusive content. A special mention to the wizard behind the curtain, Tyrone Jackson from Call Tyrone IT Services. His technical prowess and unwavering dedication are the backbone of this podcast. Next week, we'll be back with more. Until then, tell your friends, tell your family about our show. Your support is invaluable. And remember, keep that curiosity alive. Keep seeking the truth.